We'll just do a bit of a quick introduction of who's here for the people that are here now. I'm Simon Murray. I'm the standing president of the Mountain Sports Collective. I'm an enthusiast, not a professional, although a lot has rubbed off, especially of late. And thanks for coming tonight, guys. Natasha, go on. Tell us all about you.
So I'm Natasha, I'm the secretary, also an enthusiast, not a professional, but love to get out there and get amongst it. So I'll pass it over to Narelle.
Hi, Narelle Waters. I'm the treasurer of MSC, although an enthusiast. Yeah, that's about all from me. So I'll pass over to Cam Walker.
Hi all, Cam. I'm one of the directors for Victoria. I've got lots of chickens and things being very noisy in the background, so I'll keep myself muted for most of the time. Over to Peter.
Okay, I'm Peter Herring, and I've been acting as the New South Wales Director of MSC for the last 12 months. And I do actually have a qualification, CIA Ops 1 Avalanche Observer. And yeah, that's in the backcountry all the time and an enthusiast. Who hasn't spoken? Agatha.
Hey, I'm Agatha Nilska. So I've been helping out Peter in New South Wales, but I also work for the Bureau of Meteorology, managing the New South Wales and ACT Forecasting Centre. And Jared here as well, who's been helping out. Thanks. And over, I think that's back to you, Simon, now.
Oh, Craig.
Oh, no, Craig. Oh,
Craig.
of course, most important. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Agatha. Yeah, my name is Craig Shepherd, and I joined MSC this year. I'm a professional from Canada with my Canadian Avalanche Association Level 3, and I was brought on to the Mountain Sports Collective to be the program director. And I think now we are back to Simon.
Cool, so I'll start sharing our presentation for today. I just note we are still waiting for a few more people, Simon, so I don't know if you want to just hold off.
I'll just talk really slowly.
Yeah.
No, wait. No, there's a lot to get through, so we better kick off. But yeah, I think the most important bit that we need the crowds for comes luckily at the end of the presentation. So, oh, I just need to escape the full screen. Alrighty, so Mountain Sports Collective, as you are all well familiar with, is in its third year of operation. We are Australia's only user group representative association for participants in winter human-powered sports. Through our association, we strive to provide information and guidance on safety, environment, and to connect the participant community. I'd like to recognise the traditional owners, Mountain Sports Collective. All our board members and members meet, work and travel on the traditional lands of the Doodaroa, the Yanatang, the Taungurong, the Gunakurni and the Ngarigo people. We pay respect to elders past and present and acknowledge the pivotal role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders continue to play within the Australian community. We actively promote and reference representations of land and geography and culture of the First Nations people from pre-colonisation in preference to that of colonisation. And now, that was pretty quick. How many people have we got? Still waiting for a few. I could do it all again from the top. No. I'll start with the season review, and it just means that I can go into it in a little bit more detail. So the season's review is a part of sort of the president's report by any other incorporated association, but because what we do is very tangible and tactful and relates to snowpack and weather and safety for the majority comes in the form of a season review. And can everyone hear me? Because the internet's telling me that my connection is unstable. It's no personal reflection.
I might jump in there, Simon. So I think we just need to confirm that we actually have a quorum to continue with the AGM. If we don't have it, then we can't. Yeah, there's not much point in continuing because we'll have to go through it all again. So, Nez, are you able to jump in and just let us know what the minimum numbers we need to have online are?
Uh, 24 is the minimum number. I do note that there's a number of us that are online that have duplicate people that are members. So we're sitting at 20 that have joined through the internet. And there are 3 that I know of that are sitting in the room with other people. So we're up to 23.
So we're just one short.
One short. We're actually at somebody else's, to dogs count, just saw it. We actually at somebody else's place who is a member, so we'll just go and get them.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. And while you're doing that, I'll just run through a bit of housekeeping, Simon.
Oh, sorry, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you jumping the gun, we've got to do last year's minutes as well first.
I'm a jump-in guy. I like to jump in.
Okay, so for those of you who've joined us via the webinar format, you will have the opportunity to ask questions and speak up towards the end of the session. We will, if throughout the course of this, you've got a question, please put it in the Q&A section on Zoom or raise your hand and we will unmute your mic so that you're able to talk. And then at the end, we will have a session where everybody is able to talk and have their say. So hopefully you won't get too tired of just hearing our voices while we run through all the admin stuff that we need to do for an AGM. So first up, we just need to go through and look at last year's minutes and confirm that they're a correct representation of what actually happened. So essentially, I'll be moving a motion to accept the minutes of the last AGM. We need a seconder, and we also need to check if there's anybody who from the floor. So if you've got something from the floor, if you could raise your hand and we can unmute your mic and get your questions out there. So yeah, just open that up for the second. And for those that are wondering, the minutes were sent out with your Zoom link, so you should have a full copy of last year's minutes.
I'm just wondering, when it comes to voting, do we need to log in as individuals to record a vote?
Yeah, later in the session for polling, yes, that would be preferred, Jared.
Yeah.
Cool, so I can't see anything coming up from the floor. Would anyone like to second the motion to accept the minutes of the last AGM?
I can second that with my hand.
And Kelly's put her hand up as well. So
thanks, Kelly.
If we can record that Kelly is happy to, I'm just going to unmute you, Kelly. Kelly, did you just want a second or did you have a question?
No, just a second from me.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. And so the next section we need to cover off is business arising from the previous minutes. So there is a correction that the committee needs to make to what happened in the previous AGM. In the previous AGM, we talked about setting up the committee structure with a New South Wales and a Victorian representative, and we actually added an extra member in. So it's just important for us to correct that. After the AGM, we noted that this didn't follow with our constitution. So we fixed that up and we actually asked Agatha, who was voted into this position that didn't actually exist, to step into a subcommittee position. So Agatha has been having input throughout the year, but in a subcommittee position, and we have kept, and we popped Rolf back in vice president. So that we kept in line with the Constitution. So we just need to put on the record that we corrected that from our actions of the last AGM. And I just want to put out there and ask if anyone else has any business arising from the previous minutes, or if they have any questions about what I have just raised. Cool. All right, I can't see anything coming up. So if you miss out, please feel free to jump in at the end of the session as well and bring anything up. So now, Simon, I will hand over to you for your President's report. Go for it.
That's great work. Thanks, Natasha. I could do a thank you list that would take up the whole meeting, so I'm not going to do that now. All right, so season review. For those of you who just joined us, season review at MSC is the President's report. So due to circumstances surrounding 2020 winter season, namely the COVID-19 lockdown in Victoria, MSC focused the majority of our beta platform, which we began developing and have been discussing from the point at which we had our last AGM, in New South Wales, lucky New South Wales. In total, we published 78 backcountry condition reports, and they were created for the main range between the end of June and the end of September. The backcountry condition report takes into account 3 main hazards: surface condition, ice presence and distribution, weather conditions, blizzard, whiteout and exposure, and avalanche hazard rated high to low. The severity and likelihood of these hazards are determined through data collection, both online and through resources in the field in the form of observation. Furthermore, hazards are assessed for 2 elevations, alpine and subalpine. And for everyone, all of this material that I'm going through now is going to be available with extra heaps good infographics to help us all take it on board, because what we do have is a lot of data that we have access to now, or are building a library of it, because that is what powers our forecasting. Once the 3 separate hazards are assessed for any given day, they are combined to reach an overarching advisory for each elevation. The 3 elevations are usual caution, extra caution, and not recommended. Therefore, the first thing a user sees when looking at a backcountry condition report is an advisory icon. And anyone who's familiar with the service will have seen these over the period of the year. In addition, in spring, it's deemed that it's relevant to add a further category of spring conditions, because in spring, we get the fact that over any given daylight period, we can go from hard and icy, where a slide for life hazard is the biggest concern, into wet slide avalanche conditions, and then back again. So again, that's an advancement on where we've been working. To look more closely at winter 2020 in the main range, the backcountry conditions report has been broken down by elevation and advisory. I might just try and share this little puppy, because I think it speaks to whether or not our service is working. I'm just going to share this there. Okay, everyone can see here. So above and below alpine, you would expect to see more days conducive to participation. Whoop, and go back and closer on that, which is what we're looking at here. So 2020 backcountry condition reports in the alpine. We had extra caution at 40% and not recommended at 20%. And not recommended, we're actually saying like there are better things to do with your day than traveling to the backcountry. Conversely, at the subalpine, there's only, I think it's 3% of not recommended, and 31% extra caution. So it feels like the metric that we've built around combining or aggregating scores on hazards relative to what things that you can do personally to mitigate your risk is at least panning out at a macro level to make sense to the user. I'll go back to faces. Everyone can still see me again now, yeah? Alrighty. So the storm cycles that presented this season, interesting year, and well, the past winter had many precipitation events through June, July, August and September, but generally speaking, there were 3 major snowfall events while MSC was operating. And everyone can note, everyone's probably pretty familiar with the fact that the first one in July, significant East Coast low pressure system delivered over 70 centimetres of snow. The snow fell in atypical southeasterly direction winds. And as such, wind loading around the main range was predominantly found on northwest aspects, unusual. And Craig, who was our forecaster, I had to tell him exactly how unusual that was, because it is quite rare. Unfortunately, the storm finished with rain, and the 70 centimetres of snow had a 1 centimetre rain crust on top that proceeded to strengthen with rime ice accretion, and we entered into a long period of widespread ice conditions. Unfortunately, in Victoria, we got half of that, but no one was allowed out at that point. Secondly, in August, the big snow of the season occurred, with the main range receiving over 100 centimetres of precipitation in approximately 6 days. That's big. The storm began with northwesterly winds and quite classically changed to southwest as the storm ended. From this system, several wind slaves were reported and cornice growth was exponential. Lastly, in late September, a storm delivered 45 centimetres of snow with northwest winds, creating wind slabs on lee aspects. Although there were no reports from the main range of any avalanche activity, it was this system that led a skier, a Victorian, to trigger an avalanche in the Hotham area, in which the skier lost their gear, but was fortunately not buried and was uninjured. Good on you, Victoria. As mentioned, there were many other precipitation events, and between these 3 major snowfalls, several times throughout the winter, 5 to 10 centimetres would fall, with majoritively northwest winds making for good skiing in isolated areas. On the flip side, there was also several rain events that ate away the snowpack, particularly in the subalpine. Indeed, just before the big snow event in August, the rain had, as quoted, decimated the lower elevation. And on our count, there were, as far as avalanche conditions, there was, I think, 7 notable events that were recorded on the main range. And I can add to that's kind of consistent, because in Victoria we were out doing research and we actually didn't see a lot because we didn't get past threshold for most of the season. And then when we did, we had a human explosive to test the weakness, and we got an avalanche off the shortest period, 2 weeks of skiable snow, and we had an incident. Lucky dude, because he was buried up to his, he was this deep in it. I think it would have straightened him out and made him think twice. So now I'm just going to go into, so we work hard and we generate all this field data, and then we publish all of this information. But what happens with it then? Obviously, the website is the main platform, and 2020 saw the continued growth of visitation to the Backcountry Conditions Report platform. In July, we published the long-awaited New South Wales main range map. Controversial. Fortunate timing, given that the only population of backcountry participants allowed to access the backcountry in Australia under COVID-19 restrictions was in that state. Who would have thought that? In addition to this, New South Wales participation in backcountry activities grew. We're not going to put numbers on it, but I think everyone who works professionally and or was out there saw it. We believe that through both the continued growth we've witnessed year on year, and through the general apprehension by participants towards recreating in crowds for fear of contracting the novel COVID-19 virus. Likely also the case in Victoria had we snow and access. Meanwhile, in Victoria, we had to cease reporting at the behest of our partners, such that we did not promote participation in light of the Victorian second wave shutdowns, because we really didn't want people breaking the rules to go and get some power, to then have the police drag them away and slap hefty fines on them. So all things considering, the metric by which we gauge our reach was up by 10% year on year. But when you consider that half of our audience actually just, when they realized that they couldn't go to the snow, just completely tuned out, and some of you are here with us tonight on the panel, in the attendees, you can second that, 10% was possibly likely to be 20% if it was a normal year, even as opposed to a COVID normal year, which is what we might be looking at next year. This is undoubtedly the result of Craig Shepherd's consistent and relevant daily bulletins for the New South Wales region. Based on scant reference analytics, the 12% rise in unique visitors is actually representative of a 50% increase in New South Wales site visitations, because there were no Victorians. Unless there were Victorians that were just sort of tuning in to know what they were missing out on, but I doubt it. And there was a membership surge that was a part of that, and I'll get into that once we get to the membership. I'll just cut to a quick screen share so that you can see what I'm seeing. Here is the traffic, and I work on really lean analytics because I like to know actuals rather than people talk some big numbers on the website. But we did have 39,000 page views over the season, so that's likely to be close to 80,000 page views if Victoria was in the mix. And what I like to see in this graph is the fact that it is flat-ish across the top, because that actually tells me that it's not just news hype and people tuning, randoms tuning in to find out about avalanches in Australia. This is user group tuning in to check weekly or possibly daily throughout the period of the season. You can see as I scroll down below that we have other years that we can track where you get these really pronounced spikes, and that from a reference point of view, what we actually want to see are these flat tops, and the longer and wider the flat top, that's actually much larger visitation and a better behavior, because people are checking in weekly, if not daily. And from my point of view, and for us as the enthusiasts and participants, that's what we should be doing. So over the duration of the service, I'll cut back and you can, sorry, I just lost myself for a second there. There's a whole, actually I'm going to leave this stuff because you can get right into it. I want to get more into it, but it's data that's not relating to snow, so it doesn't make me that excited. Anyway, 6,000 weekly check-ins. We did pretty good. Thank you, Craig. Social media. So this year we kind of, at mid-year, we pivoted and we started to actually push out relevant observations the minute that we weren't in happy days in the mountains. And it's interesting, though, I think it gets a lot of eyeballs. It doesn't necessarily get a lot of likes, because you're not, saying, hey guys, maybe not today, isn't necessarily that likable as a sentiment in social media. People just like cats and face shots, and they didn't necessarily, but I still think that the reach was really valuable. So on that, we are also opening up, and we'll get to this at the bottom, subcommittees, of which community outreach, as Craig and our friends from Canada considered to be really important for building trust. Social media is a part of it, not a particularly trustworthy place, but we are looking for people with understanding and background who want to help out and work with us in that space. If there is anyone here tonight or anyone that they know of that loves snow, we're open ears. Victorian Developments 2020. So in Victoria, the backcountry professional community. So that included people, any persons, operational or individual with a vested interest in the participation and safety of backcountry sports. Land managers such as Parks Vic, New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service were in attendance. Various commercial operators from both Victoria and New South Wales, as well as backcountry safety professionals engaged in providing safety training. So basically everyone who's got skin in this backcountry game that we could get on the day, at which point we presented to them what we have proposed, which is the beta version that we delivered this year. And it was met with a strong accord, and there was, there was a healthy level of pragmatism as to it was ambitious and can you really pull that off? Obviously, a whole lot of things happened, but as fate would have it, New South Wales had the floor, and we did achieve it. I think what we need, what we were presenting that was key, that's unique as the Australian snow itself, was that we're moving away from being an avalanche service into being an alpine hazard service, and that we were looking at weather, surface conditions, and avalanche, and that we were going to be combining all of those into a day rating as to whether or not it was worth going out. A huge success. And I'd like to thank some of the guys who we engaged with as far back as, wow, I can't think when that was, over a year ago, to discuss ways to meet the user needs in the backcountry. That happened in Melbourne in consultation on the phone. So thank you to those guys. I know a few of you are in the room. So in Victoria on the ground, with the advance of the pandemic coupled with lethargic start to the snow season, things got complicated. Yep, we stopped the service. But key developments for this season have largely been the product of the program director Craig's input. So we didn't want to lose a season with regards to being able to generate data such that we have a better forecast picture moving forward. Importantly, we established strategic study plots in which we can conduct snow profiles on a consistent level to be able to generate more consistent data, and also beginning to understand the correlation across the range of how these study plots work together. We've developed a template for time profiles of the season, which is super nerdy stuff, but kind of cool when you get into it. So stay tuned to that, because there'll be a link from the annual report that we send you that you can dive straight into that, and you'll have access to all that data. And also extensive iterations took place across the platform, informed by New South Wales, which will benefit Victorian members as we move forward. So it was as though Victoria was using New South Wales as its test for communication. And you can go back and look through the archive, and you can actually spot where we've gone, hang on, that's not quite right, we need to change it. New South Wales development. New South Wales was fortunate to actually have snow, unlike Victoria. Not only were the resorts able to stay open despite the threat of COVID-19, the snowfall did come, albeit late and intermittent. It was clear that with restricted resort operations, there would be more people, more backcountry users than ever before, many of whom would be backcountry first timers. Anecdotal evidence suggests that this was indeed the case, with easy access locations such as Dead Horse Gap and Guthiga Dam being heavily used, and backcountry tour operators inundated with inquiries and bookings. From July through to late September, MSC issued daily snow condition reports. Craig Shepherd, MSC's avalanche forecaster, in addition to his own observation, received regular observations from MSC New South Wales volunteer teams of observers, as well as members of the public, and put out avalanche advisories during avalanche cycles. Craig enabled the report format to be fine-tuned in line with Canadian best practice. Craig and members of MSC committee met with representatives of the New South Wales Parks and Wildlife Association and other New South Wales stakeholders to discuss MSC's activities and objectives, and how we might be able to assist each other in improving safety in the backcountry. That's a big place to play. We have in the annual report, you'll see some maps that I've put together about our forecasting regions and how we're really doubling down. I can share these really quickly. I think it tells us one thing. around the size and the convenience of New South Wales, because New South Wales has conveniently got a very compact and geographically somewhat similar area range for the forecast to take place. And it also has existing bureau weather stations, which is contrary to Victoria, which I'll just jump to quickly. As you can see, much larger and far sparser. What I want to get into now is if that's everything that happened, plus a whole bunch, we need to pivot into preparations for the 2021 season. We have challenges that in Victoria, particularly, we have challenges that impede the delivery of the service. And the gold standard is this ISO 31000, a risk management standard. And the things that impede that in Victoria are two main action points that we need to resolve prior to 2021, which we wouldn't know about unless we'd done this work that we did this season. And they are field observations and sparse data. So we rely, we rely currently on a handful of volunteers with the required experience and or qualifications to conduct systemic and reliable field observations. This is a challenge to be addressed in the professional development section, which Craig will take us through. On an operations level, we have significant latency in the process because we'll be out in the field, and then to be able to distill the data from the field and get it to the forecaster desk to then be able to publish it is currently involves car driving and some issues, of which we're hopefully going to create a solve for that. And sorry, I just lost myself. So, and we're looking at, and as a part of that, trying to create a avalanche centre, if you like, or an alpine safety centre at Mount Hotham, because and in a position that's convenient also to the backcountry at Mount Hotham, to help expedite that latency in the field observations. And hopefully, ideally, also add a public avalanche training park there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Again, that will be in full detail in the annual report. So jump in there and have a read. Sparse data being the fact that we're trying to forecast over such a large region by geographical terms and in consideration to the people with which we use as our benchmark, which is Canada. And the ways that we can combat that is by having people in the field and having eyeballs in the field, or also having weather stations in the field. An installation of a weather station at Cleef Cole Hut is on the cards, collaborating with National Park, Victoria Vic Parks on that one. Collaboration with SES Falls Creek Unit to develop an observations program integrated within their routine training exercises. Roving patrol units of operations level 1 paid professionals who routinely conduct field assessments across the 2 forecast areas, and setting up what is internationally a shared reciprocal platform where ski patrollers and the backcountry observations can be pulled together so that ski patrol directors can see what we're seeing out in the backcountry, and likewise we can see what they're seeing in their dawn patrol. That's the sensible way to do it. That's the way that everyone does it overseas. So we're going to build that capability into our website. I'm going to, Craig, are you there? And do you want to jump in and just walk us through professional development?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Tashi, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Thank you. Yeah, so regarding professional development, as the Mountain Sports Collective continues to grow as an organization, one of the challenges that I found last year, like Simon said, it ties into information coming from the field. And so I think it's important that the members who are involved also continue to grow their skills. As a professional, I strive to continue to grow still. So the MSC is initiating a professional development program. It's quite simple. There's 3 components to it. Firstly, it's recommended at the beginning of each season that we get together for a field training session. So the Mountain Sports collective operations teams who are participating in the field will get together. That will get everyone on the same page. It helps create a sense of unity and improve our technical skills and discuss any things that have changed in the industry. The industry still have connections, people within MSC and myself back in Canada, also New Zealand and Europe. So we'll definitely keep our finger on the pulse of industry best practices around the world. Secondly, I strongly encourage everyone to have a continued professional development. And again, I take this away from Canada where I had to maintain my own points to maintain a professional membership. And there are several ways to continue your professional development. There can be formal learning activities, so avalanche specific courses in Canada, New Zealand, Japan, or other regions. There are weather courses that would be very helpful for the Mountain Sports Collective. There's also tertiary education programs. Any sort of formal learning programs would count for continued professional development. Lots of informal learning activities. So workshops, webinars, conferences, podcasts, publications. We have access to a lot of those. Of course, mentorship, both mentoring someone or receiving mentorship would count as CPD. Public speaking, because part of our mandate in 2021 moving forward is community outreach. And so speaking at any of those community events, I think would be good CPD. And then of course, field days. So actually being out in the field, getting your shovel in the snow, traveling through the mountains and collecting the information would count as points. So that's just something that I'm just starting to work towards of what that looks like. So like I said, firstly, a preseason training, secondly, continuing professional development. And then lastly, it's really important as professionals to ensure that we communicate well together. And in order to understand each other, the MSC will use the observation guidelines and recording standards for weather, snowpack, and avalanches, which is a Canadian avalanche document from 2016. And so that document, although many of the observers are already familiar with it, because if they've done their professional level 1 course in New Zealand, Japan, or Canada, that is a standard, but we'll ensure that anyone gathering information from the Mountain Sports Collective is familiar with the OGRs, as they're called, so that the forecaster is receiving quality information and understanding exactly what the field technician is telling them. And that is kind of a snapshot of what professional development will look like coming in 2021.
Thanks, Craig. Genius. I'm going to just I'm very conscious of time. Funding. A big thanks to Outdoor Victoria in Victoria, who have found a sponsorship avenue with other interested Victorian state government agencies. They've deemed that the work that we've done in communicating hazards was a worthwhile exercise and thus invested. And yet nothing's a given in this world, especially in the COVID world. So we have to strive to keep our heads up and be, intuitive and ingenious when we come to engaging stakeholders who share our challenges. So I think the most important thing that comes out of the memberships is that we have a almost staggeringly exactly the same back-to-back renewal rate across members of 28% renewing and 72 to 73% new members. Now, that's quite high churn, but I've got a feeling that I think it's around about 60 or 70 people are the dead set MSC crowd who just renew every year, and the other half is churn. But that's just a guess. I think that, again, when it comes to outreach, that's something that we could possibly improve upon. And I think when we get to the floor in a moment, then I'd like to hear comments and suggestions around what's maybe lacking or what we could do better. And this year, New South Wales membership surged from being roughly a quarter to now being over a half, only just over half compared to Victoria, but there's definitely a parity between those two states with those membership numbers. And the figures are 251 members currently standing for 2020, I believe. Nez, if I've got that wrong, you can chime in, but yeah. And now that wraps up the kind of, what do you want to call it? That's the season review slash president's report. And we're going to move into some of the other bits of business with Natasha. With the
Awesome.
grounds
Thank you,
promotion
Simon and
change.
Craig. So just before we move on, we need to move a motion that we approve the annual report and get a seconder. So can I get a hand up for somebody who's willing to move that motion? Thanks, Jared. And Hamish, I'll take you as the seconder. Thank you. Awesome. So I'm going to hand over to Nez now, who's going to present the financials for the finishing financial year in 2020.
Hi, this is the really boring bit, but so this is the Treasurer's report for the end of the financial year, which ended on the 31st of May 2019. So we're not talking about, sorry, 2020. We're not talking about what's happened in the last few months. We're really just talking about the information up until that point in time. So as a balance sheet, we ended the 1920 year with a total equity of $7,200. You can see there it has the preceding years in the information that you might be able to see on screen. That carried over. Our biggest, if I go to the income statement, our biggest, we had 18,000 of revenue come in for that 1920 year. And our costs and expenditure, you can see there, meant that we had a deficit for this particular year. But because we'd been carrying over retained earnings from the previous years, that's why we are still totally liquid in the total equity of being $7,200. Our major income revenue streams for this year were memberships and merchandise. Our major expenses for this year, you'll see there were consultancy fees, which was in the order of 5,200. That was for a dynamic avalanche consultancy report that was written up on how these type of organisations operate across the board, as in across the global stage, and how we might best fit in what we should look like in Australia. So that was our major expense for 19 and 20. If we talk about this year, as Simon alluded to, we have been fortunate with our funding this year, and we have received some money through for our funding. I haven't got the full report for the numbers for what's coming into the 2021 season, because we're still halfway through that. That won't be completed till the end of May, but as a bit of a snapshot, we've got the retained earnings of 7,200. We've got income that in total with merchandise, memberships and the funding that we've had, 52,000. We've had expenses to date of 25,000. We're at total equity at this stage of 34,000. Now that equity will go towards building the platform that will support the forecasting and all of the data that we've collected this year, going into the back of that to make that a much better system than what we're currently using. So there's a lot of work that's going on in that space, as well as professional fees for various things. That's where that money will go in operating for as we begin to operate for the next season coming. But that's all I've really got. If there's any questions, please let me know. What I do have though on the next part is, oh, sorry, Cam.
I was just going to say, could we just say thank you very much for your efforts on this, and also for all the merchandise, the hard work of getting the merch out. Thanks heaps, Nez.
My pleasure. Thanks, Cam. Now, just to make it a little bit more exciting, I did put some of those membership stats into the next slide. So this is a little bit about what Simon was talking about. And look, the really big take home from that first graph there is looking at the percentage of membership by state and year. As you can see for the 1920 year, orange is New South Wales and green is Victoria. It was quite, New South Wales didn't have the same numbers as Victoria, but through a variety of things this year, we've really moved it back up. So there's really even numbers, which is fantastic news that we can support both states to the same degree. Now we have a membership that's covering that as well. I did put in there the one about some of the new versus renew. And as Simon said, we do have a core group of people that have come back year after year. And most of you are on this call. So thank you. You are the cornerstone of our organisation and really important. So really encourage you, if you are interested in joining any of the subcommittees, that we would love to hear from you in a more formal way. The other one, just to note, is a bit of a membership split by gender. Now, this is really rough. It's not based on, we do not ask people their gender. It is a bit of a rough guess, but it's just to show that most of our members are male members, and we have a very small amount of female, which is not represented in the board, dare I say. So just an interesting note, but it'd be great to get some further participation in the other area. Okay,
And
that's
as
all from me.
question from the floor, how many founding members remain? Asked by Adrian Hopkins.
How many founding members remain? Was that the question?
That's correct.
It's, I'd have to look up exactly the founding members, but it would be about 45 of the founding members would still be members today. What I do find is that members who have been a member once, they may not be a member every single year, but they do come back. They seem to come back on the second year around. So we've got, if we go back from 17, 18, 18, 19, et cetera, over the 4 years that we've been there, as I said, we'll have some people that started out as a founding member. They didn't renew 1 year. The next year they've renewed. They might have renewed again this year. So it varies from year to year. Yeah, we've modified the way that we've done our memberships by offering it a subscription. So we don't know if that's because people don't know which year that they're in, or if it's not that important to them because they don't feel they're getting the offerings. But we have been offering the memberships as a subscription now to see if we can help to retain some of those people that may have originally joined.
Awesome. Thanks, Nez. Just checking, is there any more questions from the floor about the financials or yeah, anything around the memberships? So we just need to move a motion that we accept the Treasurer's report and financial statements. So can I get somebody to move that? Thanks, Rolf. And somebody to second, please. Right, I'll second it. Awesome. Thank you. So next up, we do have our special resolution. So we are putting forward a motion that we will would like to change the name of Mountain Sports Collective to Mountain Safety Collective. And the idea behind that is that looking at feedback from our stakeholders and also looking at what our vision and our aims and what we want to communicate to the community about what we do, we feel that safety is a better word to have in our title to make that more representative. So we do need to vote on that today. So I've generated a poll. So I'll start the poll shortly, and then if everyone could vote on whether they would like to, they like the new name, they like to keep the old name, or abstain from voting, that would be great. And then yeah, we can see how we go. So I'll just start that poll. And feel free to click away. And it is anonymous as well.
We can't vote.
Cool. So we've just got a couple more people to vote. That maybe there are a couple people on the line who are not current members, so I have asked them not to put forward voting prior to this meeting. So I'll just give it a couple more seconds.
For some reason, my poll isn't working, just so you know, but I'm good.
Yeah, we'll take the panelists' votes. We will add to it as well. Okay, so if I end the polling now, I can now share the results with everyone. So as you can see, there's quite a large percentage of people that are positive in putting forward to change the name. So to do that, we do need to take some steps in terms of notifying Consumer Affairs, and we also need to update our constitution as well. So we'll take steps to do that after this meeting.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Good work, team.
Cool. So the next thing we need to get through in the AGM is nomination and election of committee and office bearers. According to our constitution, we need to nominate 3 per year. This year we put out with our AGM invites, and it's been displayed on our website for some time, for people to put forward nominations for positions. Either fortunately or unfortunately, we have just had 1 nomination for each position at this point in time. So we do not need to vote on it, but we just need to announce that going into the next period, that we will have a new president, which will be Craig Shepherd. Welcome, Craig. Simon is moving into vice president, and Nez or Narelle is remaining as treasurer. Lucky for us. So that brings the committee moving into the next period as myself continuing as secretary, Craig as president, Simon as vice president, Nez as treasurer, and then we've got Cam remaining in his position as a general committee member or on the Victorian side, and Peter Herring remaining as in general committee on the New South Wales side. And then we've got Rolf in the Victorian subcommittee and Agatha in the New South Wales subcommittee as well. So does anyone have any questions about that from the floor or from the panelists?
Can I just add to that?
Yep.
That the way I think one thing that Craig and I have discussed, and we discussed in our last general meeting, was that subcommittees themselves will likely, and this will be communicated in the annual report, take the form of operational subcommittee, which is all of our field observers, level 1, and weather wonks and snow scientists, passionate individuals, but professionals as well. And then also there's the community engagement part, which is also key. Things like the Backcountry Festival have helped carry that forward, and we'd like and that position in both states is wide open. So if there's anyone on the floor that would like to participate in that, or has ideas of people who've got some kudos in that area, community engagement for Mountain Sports Collective in both regions as a subcommittee is looking for a chair. Oh, you've got a screen for it. I didn't even see that. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, so that leads in really well. So I think we do have one more admin thing to go through, and I can bring this back up when we open up the floor. But as Simon mentioned, we are looking for people to join subcommittees to help us with all the different aspects of getting MSC out there and operating really smoothly. So that would include, as Simon said, operational. We're also looking to seek more input from commercial operators, and also anyone who can assist with social media and marketing and those sorts of things that do take up quite a bit of time, because everyone on the board has a day job as well. So it's good to get as many hands as possible.
And just on that, Kelly said she's keen to be involved in Victoria. So if one of us could just have Kelly offline. Thanks,
Kelly. So we do just have, the slide might have disappeared, or I might have missed it. Oh yeah, I missed it. Okay, so we just do need to do one more thing, which is to confirm their annual subscription fee. So that's a part of every AGM. The committee spoke about this prior to the meeting, and we do propose to keep the fee at the same level, so keeping it at $50 as it has been since MSC started. So if anyone on the floor has an opinion on this or would like to put forward a different subscription fee, if you could pop something in the Q&A. Otherwise, we will move a motion to keep the subscription fee at $50. And yeah, we just need to get a mover and a seconder, please. Yep, Adrian's raised his hand, so I might just unmute you, Adrian.
You should.
Did that work?
Did that work that time?
Yep, go ahead now, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to second that motion. I think that's a good idea. $50 is something that most people can easily absorb. And if that helps to encourage people to stay with the organisation, I think that should be encouraged.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So that pretty much brings about the formal part of tonight. So now it's more open to the floor for questions or feedback and input. So I'm going to let Simon take over and run from here. And yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. I just thought I'd better just check back because there was one thing that I feel like I skimmed over, but it probably wasn't hugely important. But let me just check before. Anyone got any questions just while I hunt for this? No, we are. Oh, yeah, yep. Revenue streams we discussed. Yep. Cool. No, we're all good. Yeah, let's chat. Anyone got a question for anyone on the panel or anything they'd like to just put on the table?
Did that question from Adrian get answered? How many founding members remain active?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we've covered that off.
Okay, good.
I think, yeah, it's literally someone's got to dive in and reconcile old members, you know, that original list against each year since then. Yep, not hard, just time consuming. So we'll get to that. It's worthwhile.
Can I just say, so I do know some people at this meeting attending, they're probably part of it, that want to be part of subcommittees and are very keen to be volunteers. So how should they go about registering their interest for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, hello at Mountain Sports Collective as the email address. We'll get to myself and Craig now. So that's a great way to start the combo, and just, yeah, jump in there and have a chat about what it is that you're considering to be your strengths and weaknesses and what you want to learn and what you want to take away from it. And then we'll, yeah, get together, make it happy. And you might end up wearing a funky Hawaiian shirt like Rolfie one day. Look at what we've done to him.
Quick question, since we agreed to the name change, the email address will change to Mountain Safety Collective when?
Yeah, everything. It's funny because we've already registered the name as the URL just so that we didn't miss out on it, and everything will point back, so you can contact us by either. Yep. And that will take, I anticipate that the name change is actually going to be quite arduous and lengthy to navigate. Yeah. Adrian, interested in being involved in any New South Wales key stakeholder engagement? That's great. We've yeah, there's so much sort of, there are people that we engage with because they have practical and applicable skills, and then there are also people that we engage with who have got, you know, brand messages or products that they want to put out there, and we find that really it's really challenging working with, you know, for example, we've had partnerships with Mountain Apparel, you know, companies, businesses, and that gets really hard. But working with people who sort of have skin in the game and are good at walking around to get anyone who's, you know, organisationally has a background in trudging through snow involved, that's for sure, Adrian. Anyone else? Craig from Ross. Craig, when will you have dates for professional development days for next season available?
Yeah, sure. I was just typing an answer, but Ross, won't be certain of the dates until closer to next season. But it would be great to have a chat after this meeting if you're someone that sees themselves getting involved as an observer, being out in the fields and gathering information. We'd love to have you on board. So I will finish typing out that message to you, Ross. But yeah, in terms of the precise dates, it always comes closer to the date depending on what's going on with the weather and the season and that sort of thing.
Richard, could we get the maps in a form that can be imported to an app for an iPhone? So we've been reaching out to a back-end developer who has a lot of app experience, and he also has a lot of experience working with CAML, which is the Canadian Avalanche Association markup language, which is the way in which internationally this kind of data is transferred. Lucky as we are with Craig to have this guy in Australia now. And it was one of the things that he said. He's like, well, let's scope this out properly because you guys do this map stuff. And you know, there should be a view to, in the future, being able to have a mobile device in your hand that can geolocate you into the map in which you guys have developed, because it has the terrain rating, which is an important part. And then it can also wash that with whatever our day score or the current conditions are for that area. You know, it's a great, there's a lot to be said for that. And we were discussing whether or not that, how does that work and how do we pay? The hard bit is how do we pay for that? Because there's obviously a fair bit of work that goes into developing that kind of functionality into an app. But then again, when I look at people paying $90 a year for a subscription to Fat Maps, which is vaguely okay at best, I think, oh, well, there's possibly a market opportunity there to get something to market for Australian backcountry users that comes at roughly half the price point that will still pay for itself. First things first, when it comes to tech, we've got to get the website integrated and bespoke, which is the reason that I was engaging this guy, because Craig and myself have wasted far too much time this year wading through some pretty not that good technology. Does that answer the question? There are third-party platforms like Avenza, of which we can put the map onto. Yeah, maybe that's something that, as a short term, the maps are done to that level of detail that we can plug them into that kind of thing. It's just, yeah, that can be a perk for members. Loads of factors. Yeah. Ross. Ski Patrol, yeah, Vic Ski Patrol is currently, I reckon that one's the one for you, Craig. I know that MSC has a strong link to Vic Ski Patrol. Currently, where do the New South Wales Ski Patrols and ASPA, Australian Ski Patrol Association, as the patrol national organisation, links sit? We've had conversations with ASPA's marketing communications department, but on a nuts and bolts patrollers level, I think, Craig, you've done more conversations like that in New South Wales. So over to you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Look, it's a great question. I definitely have sat down with all 3 resorts in New South Wales over the season, and with a couple of them more than once, and there is interest there from all 3 resorts. I think that we just need to keep going back to them and having some more conversations. Definitely heard from a couple of the resorts more than once over the season, them initiating contact with us during storm cycles, which is really great to have. And yeah, and then again, all I can say is all 3 are listening. They know who we are, and I will continue to knock on their door. I guess the other thing that Simon or someone else could speak to better than me, though, is that there is a difference between how the lift companies work between states and that sort of thing. So I think there's some other limitations in New South Wales that Victoria doesn't have, or just some differences, some challenges and opportunities.
We are lucky in Victoria in one capacity, lucky and unlucky in a way, like in the northeast and at Mount Sterling. So the 3 main ski resorts that have backcountry terrain, their ski patrols are run and administered and funded via Resort Management Board as opposed to the lift company, which is quite unique, but it certainly opens up an avenue whereby, you know, backcountry is a bad word when you're talking to a lift company, but if your ski patrollers work for a Resort Management Board, they have an obligation for all visitors to the resort, anyone who's paid that gate fee, which is something that we also have in Victoria, is their responsibility. So slightly different terrain that we have to navigate with regards to those. You're right though, ASPA is really the top down, and also with regards to professional development, because the amount of ski patrollers, even just this year, that I talk to that are level 1 and looking for mentorship or are looking to get to level 1 is significant. More and more people are looking for it.
I've just to allow everyone, if anyone wants to talk, I've just made it so that all attendees can speak up. So if you have a question, to make it a bit more personal, if you don't want to type it out, feel free to unmute your mic and yell out as well.
Really yell out.
Yeah, just.
Thanks, Natasha. It's Andrew Knight here from Outdoors Victoria, and just really wanted to thank everyone for what you're doing. It's really important work, and it's really impressive what everyone's getting up to as a team, and you know, across jurisdictions as well. That's really impressive. I know how difficult that can be. So just wanted to salute all the wonderful work you're doing, and yeah, look forward to continuing to support as strongly as we can the work and the funding that we can provide across for what you're doing.
Thanks, Nighty. Do you want to just give everyone here a bit of an insight into who you are and what you do? Just because I think it's really interesting that in Victoria we have people like yourself, and we do have them in New South Wales as well. A lot of the user group doesn't really know. Yeah,
for sure. So we're relatively young ourselves. So we were formed in 2012, and out of the Victorian Outdoor Education Association, which is a professional teachers association, which merged with the Outdoor Recreation Centre, which was to look after and support and advocate for outdoor activities in Victoria. So basically our remit in Victoria is to look after outdoor learning, and that includes things like we have a bush kinder or nature kindergarten facilitator on staff. We also contribute to the Department of Education system in Victoria, by providing all kinds of resource for primary school teachers to do more learning outside the classroom, as well as ticking off the curriculum, and also support professional development of the VCE outdoor education teachers that are teaching 3,000 plus students a year in Victoria outdoor and environmental studies, and then on to the 5 TAFEs and the 3 universities in Victoria that do a version of outdoor and environmental studies as certificates, diplomas in outdoor recreation leadership, or across at uni in their bachelor programs. But the second part of our remit is to support and advocate for outdoor activity state peaks. So, your Paddle Victorias, Bushwalk Victorias, and others that may need our support. And that's where Mountain Safety Collective, I'm glad to say, comes into the fray. And we've the board and the staff are very, very proud to be able to support what great work you're up to in the backcountry. We also do work with the bush adventure therapists, which is an emerging profession in its own right. They now have a fantastic Australian Association of Bush Adventure Therapy, so you can look them up. AABAT, not Wombat, but ABAT, and also nature-based tourism businesses and organisations, and supporting and advocating for them. So a whole lot of support for not-for-profits and also the industry in Victoria, whether it be teachers, whether it be activity peaks like yourselves that are in the area of looking after a particular activity and the safety of the people doing that activity, and then also across to the industry, which is in Victoria, for example, the licensed tour operators. I think they're Eco Pass operators in New South Wales, and there's several hundred of them in Victoria that are businesses that employ around 8,000 great outdoor professionals in Victoria. So we're obviously going into bat right now to continue to have their businesses open up and offer a whole lot, hundreds of thousands of school children outdoor activity experiences. A lot of hard yards, and we obviously need to, because there's a whole lot of businesses suffering a whole lot at the moment, around Australia, but especially in Victoria because of the extra lockdowns. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an indication of who we are.
Yeah, that's great.
We're doing.
And you also have your equivalent colleague in New South Wales is someone that MSC, Peter and I have engaged with, and with regards to keeping the wheels on and lubricated, we'll try and talk to her at more length alongside the National Parks and Wildlife guys with Craig now, because he's the El Presidente. Thanks for that, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Fully endorse that Laurie Modd will do some wonderful things for New South Wales. She's a very wonderful person that's highly effective.
Take note, New South Wales guys.
He lives near my
Get
neighborhood.
onto that one.
Forward to meeting her in person soon.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Kelly, I accidentally hit a wrong button. I like to take ownership of my mistakes. So I guess I'm going to answer you live is that yes, we will talk to you about CPD as well when we get in touch to you regarding the your involvement with MSC. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions while you got your mics at the ready? I think we might be ready to call this meeting adjourned. Yeah?
Yep.
Feels like that time.
Dinner time.
Dinner
Maybe.
time. Thanks again. Like I said, I got a list of thank yous that goes to obviously everyone that's on this call, a whole bunch of guys that run around in the snow, there's just so many people that will be thoroughly articulated in the annual report. Grateful for all your help and very excited to have Craig Shepherd steering the ship from here. I was trying to think of a fitting analogy of what it means to have Craig at the helm, but I can't. So I'm just going to say congratulations, Craig. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to recognize your role as president over the last couple of years and say thank you. It's been a journey for me with you for almost the last 12 months since we first started talking, really. And like we discussed, you've built this thing and it's got some momentum. I'm happy to be joining in when I'm joining in, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of years. So thanks everybody on the committee. You guys have been doing awesome work, and I hope you make me look as good as you've made Simon look.
That's right.
Are you going to grow a beard, Craig?
Oh, I wish I could. Don't tease me.
I could get it like trimmed off and turned into like a thing that you could borrow. No, that's just weird. All right, it's getting weird, guys. I'm hungry.
Great to see the members interested in getting on board and helping out with the committees, and so that's good. I'm really looking forward to the next year. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess thanks to those who've all offered to help out. We will be in touch over the next couple of weeks. I think our focus is getting the season report out first, and then we'll be in touch to work out where to from here and hopefully get things moving into next season.
Forward to hearing from you.
Cool.
Let's hope next one is better.
Yes.
It wouldn't be hard.
In all aspects.
For Victoria, it wouldn't be hard.
Here, Cam.
Wales, we wandered around, we had lots of fun.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about it. God, I was almost thinking about running the board at the minute that they opened it just last week. I was like, there's no snow left. Or they did snow yesterday, apparently. All right, guys. Well,
cool.
I think we're done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Well done.
See you all.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Bye.